I was sorting through the mail in our kitchen when my granddaughter Emma came home from school. It was a Thursday afternoon, around 3:30 p.m. The October sunlight filtered through the curtains of our home in Riverside, Massachusetts. Emma set her backpack down by the counter and approached me with an unusually serious look on her face. "Nana," she said softly, "can I stop taking the medicine Mrs. Bennet gives me?" My heart skipped a beat. The envelope I'd been holding fell onto the counter. "What medicine, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm despite the alarm bells ringing in my head. Emma fidgeted with her school cardigan. "The neighbor lady. She visits when you're at your gardening club on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. She says Papa asked her to give me supplements to help me feel better." I felt my chest tighten. My husband David had never mentioned anything about supplements. And Mrs. Bennet? That was Sarah Bennet, the woman who'd moved into the house next door about 6 months ago. Attractive, well-dressed, always wearing designer clothes that seemed incongruous with her claim of being between jobs. "Where is this medicine now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "In my bedroom, in my nightstand drawer. Mrs. Bennet said it's our secret, that Papa wants me healthy, so I shouldn't tell you because you get anxious easily." Every maternal instinct I possessed screamed danger. I'd spent 30 years as a pediatric nurse before retirement. I recognized manipulation when I saw it. "Emma, sweetheart, please bring me that medicine right now." She nodded and hurried upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, my mind racing. "Where is this medicine now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "In my bedroom, in my nightstand drawer. Mrs. Bennet said it's our secret, that Papa wants me healthy, so I shouldn't tell you because you get anxious easily." Every maternal instinct I possessed screamed danger. I'd spent 30 years as a pediatric nurse before retirement. I recognized manipulation when I saw it. "Emma, sweetheart, please bring me that medicine right now." She nodded and hurried upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, my mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. David and I had been married for 32 years. He was an investment advisor, worked demanding hours, occasionally traveled for client consultations. Our marriage had always seemed solid, or so I'd believed. Emma returned carrying a small amber bottle. No pharmacy label, just a handwritten sticker that read, "Emma, health supplement, take 1 daily." I unscrewed the cap and examined the contents. Small, round, white tablets with no identifying marks. My nursing background immediately raised red flags. Legitimate children's supplements had brand names, proper labeling, dosage information, and safety warnings. This looked completely unprofessional.
Emma, how long has Mrs. Bennet been giving you these?" "Maybe 2 months. She started coming over after the school year began. She says she and Papa are collaborating on something important together." Collaborating? The word made my stomach churn. "And after taking these, how do you feel?" Emma looked down. "Very tired. Really, really tired. Mrs. Bennet says that's expected, that supplements make you drowsy initially, so I take it and rest on the sofa. When I wake up, she's usually left." I pulled my granddaughter close, holding her tightly. "You did exactly the right thing telling me, sweetheart. Don't take any more of these, understood? And let's keep this conversation between us for now." Once Emma returned to her room for homework, I immediately called my friend Margaret, who'd worked as a clinical pharmacist for 42 years before retiring. She lived 15 minutes away. "Margaret, I need your expertise urgently. Can I come over immediately?" "Of course. What's happened?" "I'll explain everything when I arrive."
I drove to Margaret's house, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. She met me at the entrance, took one look at my expression, and ushered me inside immediately. I showed her the bottle and explained everything. She examined the tablets meticulously, even crushing one to analyze its composition. "Rebecca," Margaret said gravely, "these aren't supplements. I can't identify them precisely without laboratory analysis, but based on their physical characteristics and the way they break apart, these appear to be some type of sedative, possibly a prescription sleep medication." "Are you certain?" "I'd stake my professional reputation on it. Where did you get these?" I told her everything. About Sarah Bennet, about Emma being instructed to keep secrets, about my husband's alleged involvement. Margaret's face turned pale. "Rebecca, you need these analyzed immediately by a laboratory, and you need to discover what your husband knows, but be extremely careful. If he's involved in administering prescription medication to a child without medical necessity, that's a criminal offense. I drove home in a daze. David wouldn't return from his Boston office until around 7. I had time to think, to investigate, to plan my next steps. I placed the tablets in a sealed plastic bag and hid them in my closet. Then I did something unprecedented in 32 years of marriage. I searched through David's personal belongings. In his home office, in the locked bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, I found the key taped under his desk. I discovered a folder labeled SB Personal. Inside were bank statements showing regular withdrawals of $750 to $1,200, marked as consulting expenses. There were also printed text message exchanges. I read through them, feeling increasingly nauseated with each line. Messages between David and someone saved as S in his phone. Can't wait for Thursday. The child will be asleep by 4. We'll have 2 hours. You're incredible. Never imagined I could feel this way at my age. This arrangement is perfect. No one suspects anything. My hands trembled. I photographed everything with my phone, replaced the folder exactly as I'd found it, and locked the drawer. That evening, David arrived home at 7:20, just like always. He kissed my forehead, asked about my day, played cards with Emma before dinner. He appeared perfectly normal, even cheerful. I watched him across the dinner table and wondered how I'd been so blind. Or perhaps there had been no signs to see. Perhaps he was simply that skilled at deception. After Emma went to bed, I asked David to sit with me in the living room. "We need to discuss Sarah Bennett," I said calmly. His expression remained unchanged. "Who?" "The woman living next door, the one who's been entering our house during my absence." "Rebecca, I don't understand what you're talking about. Don't insult me with lies, David. Emma told me everything. About the medicine, about your special collaboration together." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Oh, that. Yes, Sarah mentioned she's pursuing nutrition studies and asked if she could provide Emma with supplements for a research project. I agreed. They're just vitamins." "They're not vitamins. They're sedatives." The color drained from his face completely. "What?" "I had them analyzed. They're prescription sleep medication. Someone has been drugging our granddaughter so she'd be unconscious while they did whatever they wanted in this house." David stood abruptly. "That's impossible. Sarah wouldn't. She assured me they were multivitamins for children." "When did Sarah approach you about this?" He hesitated. "About 2 months ago." "And you didn't think to inform me? You didn't think to verify what exactly she was giving Emma?" "I trusted her judgment." "Why? Why would you trust a complete stranger with our granddaughter's health?" He didn't respond. He simply stood there, frozen. And in that moment, I saw everything written across his face: the guilt, the shame, the fear. "How long have you been having an affair with her?" I asked quietly. "Rebecca, please." "How long?" 6 months. Since she moved in next door. I didn't plan for it to happen. You and we've grown apart. You're constantly busy with your clubs, your volunteer activities. I felt invisible." I laughed bitterly. "So you engaged in an affair with the neighbor, and when your mistress wanted privacy with you in our home, you allowed her to drug our granddaughter. Do you comprehend what you've done?" "I didn't know about the sedatives. I swear on everything." "Leave. Now. Rebecca, we can resolve this. Leave this house immediately, before I contact the police." He left. I heard his car engine start, heard him drive away into the night. Then I sat on the sofa and allowed myself to cry for the first time in years. The following morning, I called my attorney, Richard Morrison. He'd handled our estate planning and property documents. Now I needed him for something entirely different. "Richard, I need to file for divorce, and I need to report a crime." I went to the police station that afternoon with the tablets, with Emma, with all the evidence I'd compiled. "Anderson, we'll need to submit these tablets for laboratory analysis. That process takes approximately 1 week. Meanwhile, I'd like your permission to establish surveillance." "What kind of surveillance?" "We want to apprehend Miss Bennett in the act. If she's been sedating a minor, that constitutes a serious felony, but we need concrete evidence beyond the tablets and your granddaughter's testimony." "What do you need from us?" "Next Thursday, when you typically attend your gardening club, we want you to go as scheduled. We'll position an undercover officer outside your residence and we'll equip Emma with a recording device. If Miss Bennett appears and attempts to administer medication, we'll move in for the arrest." I looked at Emma. She was frightened, I could tell, but she nodded firmly. "I can do it, Nana. I want to make certain she can't harm other children." Detective Walsh smiled warmly. "You're remarkably courageous, Emma."
The following week felt endless. I maintained routines, prepared meals, assisted Emma with schoolwork, pretended everything was normal. David called repeatedly. I never answered. He sent flowers. I discarded them. He sent emails pleading for another opportunity. I forwarded them to my attorney. The laboratory results arrived on Tuesday. Detective Walsh called me immediately. Mrs. Anderson, the tablets contain zolpidem, a prescription sleep medication for adults. The dosage in each tablet would heavily sedate a child of MS size for 3 to 4 hours. If she'd continued taking these, they could have caused severe liver damage, chemical dependency, and developmental problems. I felt physically ill. And Sarah Bennett, we investigated her background. Her actual name is Sarah Mitchell. She has a criminal record in New York for fraud and identity theft, no medical credentials whatsoever. We believe she targeted your husband deliberately. Why? Financial gain. We believe she researched affluent men in the region, identified your husband, orchestrated a meeting, seduced him, and then exploited access to your home to steal valuables. We found several items missing from your residence listed on online marketplaces under accounts linked to her. I hadn't even noticed things were missing. I searched the house that evening. My mother's antique silver tea set, a jade sculpture from our anniversary trip to China, several pieces of jewelry, all gone.
Thursday arrived. I attended gardening club as usual, but I couldn't concentrate on the discussion about perennial gardens. My phone stayed in my purse, volume maximized, waiting for Detective Walsh's call. At 3:45 p.m., my phone rang. "We've apprehended her, Mrs. Anderson. You can come home." I drove back faster than I should have. 2 police vehicles were parked in front of our house. Sarah was being escorted out in handcuffs, screaming that this was a misunderstanding, that she'd done nothing illegal. Emma was sitting on the front steps with a female officer, looking small but incredibly brave. I rushed to her and wrapped her in my arms. "You did wonderfully, darling, so wonderfully." Detective Walsh approached us. Emma was perfect. Miss Mitchell arrived at 3:30, entered with a key, gave Emma the tablet, and instructed her to lie down. "We have everything recorded. She's being charged with child endangerment, administering controlled substances to a minor, theft, and fraud. With her criminal history, she's facing 5 to 10 years. And my husband? That's your decision. If you can prove he knew about the sedatives, we can charge him as an accessory. But Emma's testimony suggests he genuinely didn't know. He didn't know about the drugs, but he knew about the affair. He gave his mistress access to our home, where our granddaughter lives. That's sufficient for me."
The divorce proceedings took 6 months. David attempted to contest it initially, hired an expensive legal team, claimed temporary diminished capacity. But I had all the evidence: the affair, the financial records, the fact that his negligence had endangered Emma. The judge awarded me the house, primary custody of Emma, and 65% of our marital assets. David received visitation rights every other weekend, supervised for the first 6 months. Sarah Mitchell accepted a plea agreement in exchange for a reduced sentence and 6 years. She admitted everything during her allocution. She'd researched wealthy men, found David through a professional directory, rented the house next door specifically to gain proximity to him. The tablets were intended to keep Emma unconscious, so she could steal from our home and spend private time with David. She'd stolen over $35,000 worth of items in 2 months. Emma experienced nightmares for several weeks, terrified the bad women would return. We attended therapy together. Dr. Jennifer Martinez helped us both process the trauma. Gradually, Emma began healing. She stopped being afraid to stay home alone, started smiling again, developed new friendships at school. As for me, I immersed myself in volunteer work. I established a program at the local elementary school teaching children about medication safety and trusting their instincts when adults ask them to keep inappropriate secrets. 2 years after the divorce, I met Thomas at a community library fundraiser. He was a retired history professor, widowed 4 years earlier. Kind eyes, gentle demeanor, easy laugh. We started as friends. He helped me reorganize my garden. I helped him catalog his late wife's collection of first editions. One afternoon, Emma asked me, "Nana, is Mr. Thomas your boyfriend?" I smiled. "Would that be acceptable to you?" She considered it thoughtfully. "I think so. He's kind, and he doesn't lie." That was her metric for a good person now. Someone who doesn't lie. Thomas and I dated for 18 months before he proposed. Nothing elaborate, just the 2 of us in the library's reading garden on a Sunday afternoon. Him holding a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "I know we're not young anymore," he said, "and we've both experienced heartbreak. But I love you, Rebecca. I love Emma. I want to spend whatever time I have remaining making you both happy. I said yes. We married in the backyard of our home. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Emma was my maid of honor, wearing a lavender dress she'd selected herself. Thomas moved into the house. He converted David's former office into a library for Emma, built floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, installed a window seat with cushions. Emma spent countless hours there, reading mystery novels and biographies of inspiring women. Life became peaceful. Thomas fully retired and spent his days cooking, gardening, volunteering at the community center. I continued my medication safety program, which expanded to 3 schools. Emma excelled academically, made honor roll consistently, joined the debate team and mock trial club. Sometimes I still think about that Thursday afternoon when Emma asked me about the medicine. What if she hadn't spoken up? What if she'd continued taking those tablets? What if I hadn't listened to my instincts? I pushed those thoughts away. She was brave, she trusted me, and I protected her. That's what matters.
Now Emma is 17, applying to universities. She wants to study criminal justice and psychology. She says she wants to protect other children the way Detective Walsh protected her. Thomas and I sit on the porch some evenings, watching Emma walk our dog around the neighborhood. She's confident now, strong, fearless. You raised her remarkably well, Thomas says. We're raising her well, I correct him gently. He takes my hand. We sit in comfortable silence as the sun sets over Riverside. I think about David occasionally. He remarried last year to someone from his firm. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he's attempting to rebuild his life. I don't wish him harm. I simply don't think about him often anymore. The scars from that period have faded. Emma and I discuss it sometimes when she has questions. I answer with complete honesty. We've learned that honesty is the foundation of everything. Without it, nothing else matters.
Last month, Emma came home with a permission form for a field trip to the State Police Training Academy. She wanted me to sign it. At the bottom, in her careful handwriting, she'd written, "My grandmother taught me to trust my instincts and speak up when something feels wrong. That lesson saved my life. Now I want to help others do the same." I signed the form with tears streaming down my face. This is our story. A story of betrayal, certainly, but more importantly, a story of resilience. Of a granddaughter courageous enough to speak up. Of a grandmother determined to protect her. Of second chances and new beginnings. Of choosing truth over comfort, safety over silence, and love over everything else. Thank you for reading this story. If it resonated with you, please share where you're reading from in the comments. Your support in creating more meaningful stories like this means everything. See you in the next one.